With the wide range and accessibility of over the counter drugs in the United States, individuals have the option to take health matters into their own hands. From grocery stores, pharmacies, online databases, and more, over the counter drugs are a very important factor for most in terms of their health, but individuals must know how to use them effectively and safely. But have you ever wondered the dangers that come with misuse and overuse of OTCs? Well, let's hear the opinion of Dr. David Dodick, who previously trained at the Mayo Clinic and is currently the Chief Science and Medical Officer at the Atria Health Institute in New York.
Headache pain specialist Dr. David Dodick says over-the-counter medications are an important tool, but his research shows a problem.
My colleagues and I recently completed a population-based study across the United States and found that amongst patients who had at least one headache within the past 30 days, 15% overused these over-the-counter analgesics.
It's not just headache patients. Dr. Dodick says the perception for some is that anything you can buy without a prescription isn't really a drug, and that for people with certain risk factors, overuse and misuse of certain OTC pain relievers can potentially lead to gastrointestinal problems, including ulcers, kidney disease, and that's not all.
We know now all of them increase the risk significantly of myocardial infarction or having a heart attack and stroke.
Dr. Dodick says when it comes to OTC pain relievers, he isn't worried about addiction, but he has seen frequent headache sufferers slip into a habit of taking the medication, say, before an event, in anticipation of getting a headache.
There's a habituation where habit forming, they take the medication and think nothing of taking the medication.
Very interesting, right? Now, before we move on, some context on the evolution of over the counter drugs will be useful in order to understand how this medicine came to be. In the earliest records of medical history, early examples of applied medicine emerged in what is now Iraq, with the civilization of Sumeria in 4000 BC in ancient Mesopotamia, in which documents show that they studied pharmacy, which involved many concoctions from medicinal herbs. But let's delve a little further in history with the Middle Ages. Throughout this time period, pharmacies did not exist and were instead known as apothecaries, which had the main purpose of selling spices, teas, and potions, which were mostly based on superstitious principles rather than scientific studies. The important lesson to take from this is that practicing physicians at the time were very expensive, and this meant that poor people had to rely on apothecaries for their own health. During the early modern period in London, an apothecary known as William Rose was able to dispense medicine, though in his case, he was sued by the College of Physicians for giving medical advice to a patient. Because most of these physicians were angered by the many apothecaries that were taking their opportunities for jobs, this case further went to the House of Lords. And with the landmark decision in 1704, this led to Rose being able to win his case and further allowing apothecaries to be deemed legal to dispense medicine but not charge for medical advice. Apothecaries were the early ancestor of pharmacists today, which led to the concept of over-the-counter drugs. Fast forward to 200 years, unregulated medicines were common in America, and with the crisis, the Food and Drug Act was passed by Congress in 1906 to create the Food and Drug Administration, which presently regulates the thousands of OTC products in the U.S. Let's transition to the Food and Drug Administration and its failures. So the FDA's OTC monograph system was created in the early 1970s, which served as a system that would evaluate the safety and effectiveness of prescription drugs. And if you're wondering what a monograph is, it's basically just that, a comprehensive document that outlines the safety and effectiveness of a drug, which includes specific labeling requirements and conditions for use. With the old system, though, there are many issues with delays throughout the review process, which affected the necessary updates on safety and efficacy data. And with this delay, this also hindered the evaluation of new ingredients and formulations. Because of this, in 2020, they changed the old monograph system where Trump signed the CARES Act, which was a massive 2.2 trillion largely debt financed emergency spending package that provided direct payments and unemployment expansions to individuals and businesses, while also creating oversight mechanisms for the administration of these funds during the pandemic. Though it was a reform, provisions intended to modernize drug reviews but introduced potential health risks. Key issues included accelerated marketing for new ingredients, reduced FDA oversight, an increased risk of misuse, self diagnosis errors, and potential ingredient adverse events. Additionally, more current issues with FDA regulatory process falls within the lack of clear warnings and potential side effects that may endanger public health, insufficient information on drug interactions that can result in harmful combinations, the variability in ingredient transparency that can affect consumer trust and safety, and the rise of online sales that creates complications for enforcement of labeling regulations. Understanding drug fact labels. It is very important that a consumer must read the drug fact labels in order to understand the medication they are taking, which is why I will give an explanation of key terms found in the drug fact labels. Aside from the name at the front of the OTC drug bottle, the drug fact label starts with active ingredients, which are just ingredients in the medicine that make it work. Secondly, uses. This section describes the symptoms that the medicine treats. The warnings are the safety information including side effects, questions you should ask a doctor before taking the medicine, and which medicine to avoid using at the same time. The directions is the amount or dose of medicine an individual needs to take, and how often to take it, and how much you can safely take in one day. The other information is provided on how to store the medicine, and there is also usually a questions or comments section which provides the manufacturing company's information to reach out to them for any concern. The inactive ingredients are just ingredients that are not intended to treat your symptoms but be used as preservatives or flavoring. I have recently conducted 2 interviews which I will share with you all today. These interviews talk over individuals' experience with over-the-counter drugs and their uses. Bueno, ¿a quién estoy entrevistando ahora?
A Sandra.
Ok, Sandra, dígame si ha oído del término medicaciones de venta libre, así como Tylenol o ibuprofen.
Sí,
¿Y para qué las usa?
para el dolor de cabeza y las uso para la fiebre.
Y dígame si usted lee detrás de la botella donde tiene la información de las drogas.
Casi no leo, solo me las tomo.
Hi, who am I interviewing today?
Jason.
Okay, so do you know what over-the-counter medications are, if you were to best define them?
Yes.
And when you use over-the-counter medications, do you read the drug facts label?
Sometimes.
Do you have any family members or friends that use these drugs on a daily occurrence or daily basis?
Yeah, my mom sometimes, whenever she gets some pain, she wants to take some or any allergies, she takes over-the-counter drugs.
And do you think long-term that this would be beneficial for her health?
No.
Okay, thank you for your time. Well, this will be the point in the video where I give a proper introduction of myself and also why I chose this topic. Many DC residents rely on these drugs without really acknowledging the effects that come with constantly depending on OTCs for their health. And as a senior who wants to go into the medical field, this topic opened an array of terms within the biological and historical aspect where I was able to make parallels with how OTCs still play a pivotal role for middle to lower class populations. I have met many members in my local communities that take OTCs without really understanding the long-term impact that can arise with their health, including gastrointestinal, liver, and kidney problems, all important organs that are vital for an individual's well-being. Here is a short explanation of what really undergoes when consuming an orally transmitted drug. So, if taken orally, drugs must pass through the cells of the GI tract and travel to the liver via the hepatic portal vein, which allows the liver to have a chance to metabolize some of the drug before it goes into general circulation, which is known as the first pass effect. And in the liver, any drugs that enter the hepatic cells, there's a series of enzymes in the smooth endoplasmic reticulum that metabolize them. And then these drugs move through the phospholipid membranes of the endoplasmic reticulum, and then the hepatic microsomal enzymes like P450 convert these drugs from lipophilic to hydrophilic compounds. And then certain drugs compete to bind to metabolic enzymes, which decrease the drug metabolism, which is known as enzyme inhibition. So the more that you're taking a pill, the more that your brain is going to create a psychological trigger that says that you have to take more of it to deal with your health issues. I was able to give a short explanation of what happens throughout the body in the biological aspect of taking OTC medication. But most importantly, engaging with local communities is the best way to share valuable information on health because everyone deserves to know what can affect their health, and also the responsible and appropriate way to research health topics with accredited sources such as the National Institute of Health. I personally engage these topics with local youth around DC. It is important that they are able to take this information and share it with their family or their friends. My goal was to facilitate this action in helping guide youth in ways to address health impacts that are not discussed as much as chronic illnesses. My proposed solution in helping advise the public with the consumption of OTCs and their misuse and overuse would be through a form of upscheduling these medications. So, upscheduling is the process by which OTCs are moved from an unscheduled status to a more restrictive category, prescription only. Through the regulatory process of upscheduling, this would prevent misuse among the use of OTCs, disrupt harmful trends that exist with high prevalence of misuse and overuse, enhance public safety, make awareness on OTC use, and lastly, enable proper education on consumer safety and only receiving what they need. Thank you for watching this video on over-the-counter drugs and their impact on health.